Hey everyone, today we're back on Let's Talk Husbandry.Pro, Ep.18. And tonight our special guests are Herpin Harbins, Josh and Alisha Harbin. They're one of another affiliated partners with Husbandry.Pro. And I decided to bring them on because, I know them from the hognose world and they have other different species, have been using Husbandry.Pro for a long time. So how things are going, guys?
We're doing pretty good right now. We're kind of running around like headless chickens, but we're getting stuff done, I guess.
Yeah, we rented a truck today to haul a bunch of junk to the dump. Took 2 trips, about got stuck, got yelled at on the guy, the bulldozer. It was exciting.
A lot of entertainment there. We had a rat trauma for the last 2 days, a rat running havoc in the garage. Finally got her caught and got all the hosing corrected that she had chewed up. So that's always entertainment, if you want to call it that.
And then feeding everything in between. I just got back from a trade show for work, so I've been out of pocket for like a week.
I went to Montgomery this weekend to take care of Tom's animals and then hung out with Sarah. It was their 50th anniversary on Saturday. Wow. And so we definitely didn't want her by herself. We went out to dinner with some of her siblings, and so that was nice. She cleaned rodent cages all day, and I fed and cleaned snakes. And so we took our minds off this stuff. And I think she had a pretty good day overall. We got to talk about things too. It's kind of a mother-in-law, daughter-in-law bonding time. And then as I came back home on Sunday, I stopped at the Southeast Reptile Expo in Atlanta. That was an awesome show. Definitely looking forward to that being maybe a staple in the Southeast.
You signed us up.
Yeah, I did sign us up. And I actually chased down one of the staff guys going around. I said, put us down for an end cap. I said, we want to do this. But Bob Vu and his crew did a excellent job getting that set up. Really huge building, a lot of parking. The vendors that I talked to were really happy with the traffic. And they were happy with the process and the setup. It was very vendor friendly. But also it looked like there was a lot of people coming in and out that were really happy with it. So I think that's going to be a pretty cool show. Hopefully long term.
Nice. It's good to hear that new shows are coming around and being successful and putting on good production of a show. Because you could put out anybody could put out tables and chairs and just put animals on the table and stuff like that. So it's really good to hear that it was a good event to go to.
Definitely.
And before anybody's watching, thanks for joining in tonight. Down in the ticker below is the Harbin 60 and Clover 60, and either of those codes will get you a 60-day free trial. So if you guys want to try out Husbandry.Pro, make sure to use those codes when you sign up. Before we get into like everything that's going on with you guys and stuff like that, for the Husbandry.Pro viewers and people that are tuning in, tell us a little bit about your background and what species you guys keep, and then how did you start using Husbandry.Pro?
We started just a little over 5 years ago, keeping hognose. Actually, I had a corn snake. He's 29, so I've had him for a long time. And several years, he's a pet. And several years ago, we bred a couple of corn snakes, but we didn't get too in depth with it at that time. So we got into the hognose, and we started. Well, you started with one, and all of a sudden you have 18, and then you have 60. It's a kind of impressive process with hognoses. And then about 3 years ago, we decided to dabble a little bit into ball pythons, mainly because of Josh's dad.
We made the mistake of saying those, dreaded words. We're never going to breed ball pythons. And then, there they are.
It happened.
Yeah. It's like saying Beetlejuice 3 times.
Just things go wrong. So we started doing that, and we've also kept corns the whole time, but last year was our first year that we actually bred corn snakes. You have to have a propagation permit in this state to sell them, and we were just kind of holding out to make sure, that's kind of what we wanted to do. And then we paid for that permit so we could have propagation within the state. So those are our
and that's because they're native species, right?
Correct. Okay. Yes. So we don't have to worry about with Western hognose, but because of our permit, we can actually keep Easterns. We can do garter snakes here. So it's kind of an all encompassing of the colubrids that are indigenous to this area, but we just personally prefer the corns. And so
I would love to have Easterns, but everybody we know that's tried them, they're difficult.
Stubborn little animals. They're beautiful, but they're stubborn. But I guess we got into this because of Josh's dad. We had gone to a show to hang out in Chattanooga. He was vending there, and that's where Josh's brother and family live. And so we went to hang out with all them, and then all of a sudden it just I don't know, like a spark hit. We're like, this is so much fun. Like all the people in the community,
We
people.
weren't even breeding snakes, but
No.
Alisha was behind the table, like answering people's questions, like, well, you gotta do this, you gotta do this. And then she's like called dad over. Like it was just like instant,
it clicked, man.
Yeah.
And that was all before COVID. And so the shows were like huge and booming. It was very busy. And that's when we started kind of buying into it. And then COVID hit, and then we kept buying and we kept breeding, and we kind of pushed through that little hump. And we were going to more shows with your parents. Yep. And so that's kind of where we got started as far as the breeding process of it all.
So going back a little further, when Alisha got out of vet school, she worked for my dad at his vet clinic for a few. So she kind of learned his bedside manner, in the medical field. And I think that crosses over very well to, we call it selling snakes, but really you're just helping other enthusiasts learn how to keep them.
Yeah.
So when people aren't sure about a thing, you just explain to them, you talk to them about the husbandry, how to feed them. Yeah. And then the X number $100 doesn't seem so scary. It's like you give them the confidence. So her background in vet medicine, I think, went a long way. Same with dad. Like they were both really comfortable talking to people and experts at answering questions.
See, that's a good point you make with like the people that are there to learn and that want questions. Those are the people that entertain me during a expo and stuff. You have the two people that are either have reptiles and still want to talk about reptiles, or people that are just brand new coming in and have the million questions. And then you have also two people that just walk by and don't interact.
Exactly.
But those people that have the 1,000 questions, it's great to talk, because it's very simple stuff that like sometimes we as breeders and keepers that have been doing it for a while or have more experience with the species or animals forget about sometimes. Bringing those points, and you're like, oh man,
I haven't thought about that in a while. You kind of take some of those kind of that knowledge for granted a little bit, and it may even kind of spark a question that you haven't even really thought of. Like, I haven't thought of that. And we've had people ask questions that kind of, wow, that kind of like perplexed me. But
the last show we had a traveling nurse. She's like, could I have a traveling snake? I'm like, I think you could.
I think
we kind of talked it out. I was like, I would do this. I would try this. And I said, I've never done it. I can't. Anyway, we kind of
talked it out, and like we showed her like a little setup that we thought was reasonable. And then we're like, she's like, well, what about in the hotel with like somebody coming in and cleaning? I said, just get like a cover to put over it, and it's closed up, it's covered, and nobody should be digging around in your stuff. But a little portable, a little tiny thermostat, a little heating unit, and just go plug it in, and you'll have it ready for you to go. Just kind of know your schedule, so if you need to move him, that he doesn't have food on board right as you're moving them. And she's like, oh, this is great. So she's been in contact ever since, and she's talking about building her own little setup so she can get a hog nose to travel around with her to the hotel. So
that's a pretty cool mindset on that. I haven't thought about that either.
That was kind of cool.
But like a male hog nose where it's doesn't need large space.
Just a nice
perfect for that.
He'd be perfect.
I bet if we summed up like all of the text messages, all the whatever, the questions that we've asked people over the years when we were building up, we'd have a whole book now of information that we've tried to absorb. All the YouTubes we've watched, all the just chat rooms, the Patreons, like it'd be an encyclopedia volume of information that we've absorbed in 5-6 years now. So I can't imagine what people like my dad, who had 40 plus years in the industry, knew.
And things he saw that you just don't really see anymore, like all the stuff getting imported in. I mean, there's still imports, but we just don't see them like they did back in the day. And having to deal with things coming in parasite ridden, but that was what they got to get things started. That's how they got certain species on the ground, and that's how a lot of the ball pythons were coming in back in the beginning. And hearing stories about that, Josh went on an airplane ride with your dad somewhere and came back with snakes in his jacket pocket, and that's how they transported him back. It's like, that's just so funny.
Can neither confirm nor deny the statements. That's right. Now we wore our ski jackets like in the summertime because they had zippers on them, and every pocket had something shoved in it.
It's funny because like, especially like that your dad's age and stuff like that, and the time he started within the reptile world, you have so many of those stories, like that people with bringing in different species and trying to get them established here, in the reptile community. It's really like you said, you could write a whole encyclopedia of all those stories and
All the
stuff.
stories. Yeah.
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 And guys, yeah, like Rose said, hit that like button. Make sure you guys subscribe to the channel. Um, where if you guys have any questions about Husbandry Pro, make sure you drop it in the comments down below, and we'll answer it. And we're gonna get a little bit, into the Husbandry Pro topics here in a few minutes. Um, so get into, with you being COVID, the COVID time hitting. Was that around the first productions you guys had?
That was right in the very beginning. We had some snakes already, but that was going into the first year of our production. So our first year, the very kind of as we started selling stuff, we did do some stuff online, but that's when they started opening shows back up. And so we started going to shows, and shows kind of had a little bit of a boom again. And we had kind of an unusually elevated first year. So not what a normal first year should have been for somebody, especially for one species. We only had hog noses at that point, and we only had 4 clutches. And so our income that year was shockingly high, because we just happened to hit that peak of sales in the industry. And then it's tapered off since. It's not been obviously bad or anything, but we had kind of a false elevation our first year. So we were like, whoa, this is going to be massive. But then, reality kind of hit. And that's when everything started slowing down after that. And it's steadied out. The hognose have been very steady, though. They haven't gone down. It's definitely a different market than when we had our first year sales, though. So.
Yeah. Those years, you couldn't find a hognose.
No.
In the wharf market, at a pet store, nothing,
No.
They were being put in the market and they were gone. It was very
Exactly.
interesting time.
Yeah, it was like, and I look at the prices that we sold some of the snakes at that point. I'm like, that's kind of crazy. How did we sell them at that price point? But they were such high demand, like you said, and it just wasn't there.
You saw that at the vet clinic too. Like people were getting puppies and kittens
and
all the pets,
and
not just snakes, but everything. It was all pets.
Yeah,
going
it was.
I forgot where I read this poll or study that was during the COVID timeframe, 2021, 2022. Reptiles was like jumped up to like number 3 bought pet, like right behind cats and dogs.
I believe it.
So that was very interesting, and that was about the same time I was like really getting into the breeding and stuff like that. It's like, oh man, that's really cool.
Yeah.
Where like reptiles are being top 3 of animals being bought.
It made sense because morph market was part of that, I think, craze, because people were able to get on there and shop.
Yeah.
And it could get just shipped to their house, because everything was getting shipped to your house anyway. You're stuck at home, and it made sense for people to get those. We're still even going out and getting dogs and cats in some locations. There was still heavy restrictions for public,
Correct. Yeah, you don't have to walk your pet snake,
So with the snake, it's like, oh, they just ship it right to our house, and we don't have to go anywhere to look for it. And everything comes off Amazon that we need to supply it for its substrate and everything else. Yeah. And so I think it was a very easy purchase for a lot of people, and not necessarily, some of them were expensive, but obviously a pet with some basic setup was probably covered by that check we all got.
Oh yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Yeah, it's very true. That's funny because thinking about that, using that for reptiles or whatever it is, that's pretty cool.
Wouldn't be that shocking.
Yeah. So breeding within you guys 5-6 years now, really, deep into it and breeding. When did you guys start using Husbandry.Pro?
2021.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just over 3 years ago we started. I think they were still on the early end. I'm an absolute moron when it comes to computers and anything electronic. And I started slow. Luckily, we didn't have a huge collection then. We had a reasonable collection, but I was able to start plugging stuff in and starting to understand the basics of it all and getting the animals put in. And then we started using it at shows pretty quickly. We were one of the first people I saw at the shows that had actual printed out tags with QR codes once they got the public setting on there. That was like a huge ordeal. We were stoked when they did that, because it was like, oh great, now that people can just scan it. But yeah, we've been using it for a while. And at this point, I literally couldn't do this without it.
It's an integral part of our system now. I can't imagine not having it. I can't imagine doing spreadsheets or 3x5 cards.
I hear people talk about that. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I guess I'm just not that savvy with Excel spreadsheets and stuff. So to me, it seems like a bigger struggle to have to do all that. But I mean, I was talking to a very big breeder this weekend, and ball python breeder, and they're still using Excel spreadsheets and everything. I'm like, what? I'm like what are y'all doing? Like, this is, I just was really surprised by that. And especially this day and age.
Even I think if you have the knowledge of the Excel and, build, because first you got to build your format, and stuff like that. The time you have to manually input a lot of information, even dragging it in, copying and dropping and stuff like that, is still, more than one or two clicks. Well,
and now that you can send your spreadsheet to Husbandry.Pro and they'll put in as much as they can for you, put the fields in the right place, you would have 90% of the work done.
And the thing is like, even an Excel spreadsheet can't populate things like we would want, like our little labels and stuff like that. That's the thing, is like, it's going to keep up data for you, but it's not going to be able to do this other area
or take you to their health card,
all their info cards,
sheet.
And, and having pictures of parents. And
I think that's been a deal closer for us at shows. I think when we can prove the animal's lineage, at least just show the mom and the dad, and then show the birth date, when it was fed, that. And they said nobody else is doing this. I'm like, I don't know why, but
I've had sales because that label just shows a hatch date, and that hatch date coincides either a birthday or anniversary or something like that. And they're like, oh my God, and that's the sale right there.
It is. And it's very simple. Like, I take it for granted how simple it is, but then I go around and walk around and look at other tables. I'm like, oh yeah, there's nothing here. And there's like handwritten prices, there's, $3,000 snake with it scribbled on the top of the enclosure. And I'm like, I don't know, that just doesn't have value to it. I think having these labels, it's all clearly printed out. It's got all this extra information on it. I think it just shows that we have this extra sense of care and, I guess a process. It's not just just here's your sale, here's your money, give me our money, here's your snake. I mean, that's not how we're doing it.
I've heard some users kind of get, not scared, but just nervous about what dollar amount to put on the animal. But I tell them, like, all those prices are negotiable. Like, this is a hobby. It's like going to a gun show or a car show. Like, everything's just the asking price. So, and we tell people when we're talking to them, like, hey, if that number doesn't make sense for your budget, let's work together. I bet we can find a solution.
Correct.
So, there's a lot of ways to get around that. So you can get hung up on a little detail like that seems like a deal breaker, but it's really not. It's just a starting point for negotiations.
And two, with pricing, I think with pricing, you price your animals what they're worth first to you, and what you're willing to sell them for, right?
Exactly.
Well, I'm gonna wait till I get to the expo to price to see what else is pricing. That's a crazy, doesn't make sense.
We don't have time. I want to deploy my kit and be ready to sell. I don't want to have to go do market research there. And anyway.
No, I mean, and we always have people coming over and ask us about, what our prices are. And I'm like, this is what they are. I mean, it we'll adjust a little bit if we feel like we're really over something. I don't want to be really, really high. But I don't want to be too low either. I want us to be right in the middle of where the market is. But we sure don't take time to go look at anybody else's stuff. So
we're not looking to retire in the Hamptons or anything. We just want to pay for the hobby and keep the addiction going.
And two, you guys bring, and I've done it too as well, you bring a small thermal label printer, right? It takes seconds to click and print, and that's it.
Pop it right out, fix it, and I go right into that commerce setting. If I need to go change a bunch of prices, like, okay, I don't like where we've got this set, let me go change everybody's price real quick, and then I can just populate that right over into print them out real fast and then fix it, no big deal. And so that does travel with us everywhere, because I've fixed labels, and I've also gone in with not having labels on certain animals that we decided to go ahead and take, like last minute animals. And I'll write their little code on the top of their enclosure that they're in, or the little deli cup, whatever it is, and I'll go make a quick one while we're setting up and get it done. But
man, I think that's the most valuable tool we've bought, of all, secondary to Husbandry.Pro. But that label maker, holy crap, that is just I
mean, when you shoot off like right before Daytona, which we were still mentally in a bad place before then, and so we were having to print out labels for us and for Tom, and so I guess we printed out well over 150 labels, and Tom had some already pre-labeled from a show he'd gone to a couple of weeks before. And I just be hitting that button and print, and, shooting out all the new hatchlings coming out. And I just go in there and I tear it and stick it like next to their bin. And so when we load them up before the show, we just pull it off, put them in the deli cup, and pop that little thing on, and just put them right in the little container we're taking them with. It's
how
just
satisfying is hitting that print button and you just see those 100 of labels
just rolling off.
You're like, oh my God, how much time did I save myself writing there, right?
It's like going to the arcade and playing skee ball. Little tickets pop out. I did
it was
good.
Great. Well, and I think the big thing, like at least for us, since Tom has passed away, is luckily earlier this year, Tom had started up Husbandry.Pro like about a year and a half ago, I think, and then kind of faded on it because I think he was just like overwhelmed with trying to load all his animals in it. And so we talked earlier this year, and I said, man, let's just start with putting what clutches you have coming or already here. Let's go in and get those parents in, and then go ahead and I'll show you how to he already had like animals on the ground. I said, I'll show you how to populate that whole clutch and then how to go in there. So I did one for him, and then he did one, and then I do one, and he did one. And so we sat there and we did that.
The student became the teacher.
Yeah, it was pretty good. And it's the first time I actually got to teach him something, I felt like. And so then he got into the groove of it. I said, okay, let's go in. You've got your prices you want on these animals, right? He's like, he had them in like one of his Excel spreadsheets or something. And so he pulled that up, and I said, okay, let's go to Commerce. Let's go put the prices in. So we went boom, 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 and put all the prices in. I said, now you ready to print this? And he's like, yeah, I think I am. And so we went in and printed it all out. And I was just so relieved when I got into his Husbandry.Pro in July after he passed. Yeah. And he had really almost everything in there. Like there's a few little things he hadn't added because he just dealt with it at Conroe a couple of weeks before. So he hadn't
95% of the animals.
Most of it was in there.
And we'd have been hosed.
Oh, we would have been so big of a mess. But I looked at all his display kits that he had just taken to Conroe. He had all his labels on there, his QR codes, it looked perfect. I was like, he was doing it. And so it made it so much easier to go ahead and we still have his Husbandry.Pro site, and we have our Husbandry.Pro site that will be separate for quite a while. But when we even people ask us what he has available, we send his Husbandry.Pro store. We got his store going, got all the animals updated as far as pictures that we could at that point, especially before Daytona, and we keep adding them at this point. So it's really made a huge difference in us kind of getting through these last 3 months.
So just that situation that you guys happen to be in and stuff like that, if you guys would have to input all, especially the hatchling stuff like that, into the system for him, after his passing, that would have been, it would have just added so much more work into everything.
Yeah, it would have been unbearable. I think it would have been. It probably would have possibly crumbled us to a point.
Dad didn't write hits on a lot of his stuff.
No.
He knew.
He knew everything.
He had it in his head, so we wouldn't have had that.
We wouldn't have had all this, because even like in his, he always has logged a book, like a hatchling book. And so I was going through his hatchling book trying to figure out something that had laid, and he wrote shorthand in there. And sometimes he would just write something very basic, like triple number one, triple what number one, And so, but then when I would figure out which female it was, because he'd usually write the female more detailed, I'd go scan her because she had her code on the front of the cage. And then I'd look, and the only thing he logged on his adult animals were copulations and reproduction. And so I'd scan it, and I'm like, oh, that's the male. That's the male. He just had shorthanded everything in his book, and he even left off certain things because it was like the only animal that had that particular morph. So he didn't put all the stuff in there.
I think it would take a veterinarian who has that same no medical
mindset.
note
Yeah.
shorthand to decipher
Yeah.
It
what data done.
there's still deciphering going on, but you know, and I've had a few breakdowns. I'm like, what is this? What is this? You know, and then I'd go scan the animal, and then it would show me. I'm like, oh, he scanned it. Thank God he scanned it because
so cool.
he logged it. Oh, this is
That's
gonna
so
make
cool.
life so much easier. And
So you think about all of us eventually won't be here. And if we have these collections at that point, whoever is going to take them over at that point needs that data.
Yeah.
So it's not trying to be morbid about it, but
No.
I think that's why you see collections get sold off. The families don't know what to do with it. They don't know what's what. They just see a bunch of snakes, and then they lose a lot of money, lose a lot of potential money on these collections when they just liquidate them. So
and a legacy that was built by that person potentially.
it preserves the value of the things. Kind of getting these baseball cards graded. If these snakes have a lineage and they have a health card, you know who's who. It maintains what they're worth.
Yeah.
No, you know, I think that's, you guys are such, like I said, it's such a unique position, and with you know, you guys taking that time to get him to input that stuff. I've told the same thing, you know, with people that already have established collections, large amount of size collection, and one of the biggest fears, like, how much time is it gonna have to take me to input this stuff? That route of, if you're breeding, input as things are coming, input the parents, input the clutch, and then create, and then that would spread out the input time over, you know, gradually over time. And it can help you out so much.
And while you're doing those, you get a flow of how to get an animal in there faster. So when you're ready to just start inputting those individuals, you're like, oh, this is easy. Just bam, bam. I get this individual in. It took me 30 seconds. Boom. I'm going to move to the next one. I'm going to do 10 all of a sudden, you know. And I think just getting comfortable with the program, and then also getting comfortable with what part of it you're going to use. We don't use there's fraction of the area that thing has so many components to it, but that is also, again, allowing each individual to be able to use whatever they want to do. If they're a small time keeper that just wants to log every time that animal has a urate, poop, a shed, and everything, they can do all that. Every time they got it out and picked it up, I mean, they could log all that. And so, but then if it's people like us that, we want certain meals logged, we want breedings logged, we want, you know, pre-lay sheds logged, those kind of things. We can tune it into that. And the other area, I guess we probably utilize a lot of, and it's helped us try to figure out projections, especially with two collections going in two different places, is our rodents. How many of something do we need? And what I'll do is I'll go in there and I'll do, knowing like what their size is currently, because they'll change, but not huge amount in a 2-month period. How many crawlers do we need in over a 2-month period? How many pinkies do we need in a 2-month period? Saying that we're not selling anything, but I want to have more than what we are needing. And it lets us look at our frozen thawed amounts and say, hey, we're kind of running low on crawlers. We need to order, 1,000 or whatever until we can make it up in our own rodent collection. And so that's a huge area that helps us kind of, look into the future of how many of those particular sizes we need.
The shopping list is valuable, so valuable.
It is. Guys, we have a lot of people that are just dropping in tonight. Make sure you guys subscribe, hit the like button. If you guys are interested in joining Husbandry.Pro, you guys can get an extra 30-day free trial, so 6-day free trial. No credit card needed, none of that stuff. Just enter your email, your information. You can use Harbin 60 or Clover 60 to get those 6-day free trial. And I want to take the moment because people always ask me pricing, right? And I have this pulled up right now on my other screen. So let's share this screen quick. And pricing. There's monthly, so like 5 animals or under, it's free. So if you just started, and you have 5 animals, you still want to, be able to maintain that stuff, it's free for you guys. Then it goes up basically on quantity of animals, and the most expensive, and I say expensive because is relative, because for what you're getting, the value, it is a fraction of the cost of the value. $39 a month, and you get all the features. Of course, there's like the lower tiers, hobbyist and collector, don't have them all the features. But up to 39 dollars a month yearly. Let's look at that yearly because we think about $32 a year, 75, 150, 150, 315, 315 for a commercial account, unlimited animals, everything.
The customer service alone
Yeah.
is worth that $315 a year. Like not just the way that if you don't know what you're doing, or you get lost or confused, or you screw up something, or you just can't figure it out, you send them a ticket, and I tell you, they fix it every time. They look into it. I can't tell you how many times they've helped me just kind of get over a hump or reevaluate a certain thing. That, and you get linked in with the guys on Facebook. I know you could send us a message whenever you want, and I'll do my best to walk you through the part of the system you're asking a question about, especially if we utilize it a lot. I think the team, partnerships, the group of us that are kind of behind it, I know all of us are wanting to answer questions all the time to help everybody. So not just the database system alone, but just the customer service behind this whole thing. 315 is that's nothing. I'd pay twice as much easily
It's
without
less than $1 a day.
Exactly.
And another big thing that I give him props for is free for any rescue services. So if you guys apply, send your application, and proof of your rescue, it's free. Especially if it's a active rescue that you have volunteers, people coming in and out. It's very valuable to have a record of what's going on with these animals are in a rescue. So that's one of the biggest things. I said pricing. To me, it's cheap.
I think it's cheap. I think it's cheap too.
So as I said, the word expensive is very relative to what you're getting.
I know it's probably tricky looking on the outside in, but now that we're users, it's easy for us to see the value there. But I know you see just that list of features, but I think if you ask enough people that are using the system, you'll hear the same answer over and over again. It's worth it. It's worth it.
Yeah, and I've talked to several people that waited to get into it, and then they got it, and they're like, I can't believe I waited, this long. And I've heard that story several times. I'm like, I know we're just fortunate that it was kind of a newer thing. I mean, it'd been out a little bit, and I don't even know how I happened upon it. And it just kind of was like an accident. Somebody told us at a show or something. I went and looked at it. And I signed up for like the 30-day free trial that they had then too. And I know it was less than a week that I just went ahead and paid for it. I was like, I can't live without this.
Yeah.
I can't live without this stuff.
I tried the other like phone-based stuff.
Yes. Yes.
And it was very limited. It was very glitchy and all that stuff. And same thing, either it came through like Instagram, some kind of social media. I saw Husbandry.Pro.
Yeah.
Did the 30-day free trial, like you said. I think a week. I was bought into it.
I don't even think it was a week. It was like 6 days. I told Josh that I'm signing us up for this.
If there's a software that she approves of and likes,
you got to do it, because I can't do it. I can't do anything but. Boy, I've almost got the system where I'm like, I know where things are. I know how to like navigate it. And
we've got to get Dad's side synced up, like arrangement. You can, move your buttons around a little bit.
I haven't gone and cleaned
his
that
doesn't
up.
match ours. So when I flip over to his side, I'm like, wait a minute,
I need to go back.
Making it hard on ourselves.
Yeah, muscle memory, right?
Yeah, but I know where his stuff is because I've already learned it in his area. But I'm like, I need to just go move all this around. I keep his in the light mode and I keep ours in dark mode, so I know like when I look at it real quick who I'm in. But it's interesting running two different ones. I'm not sure, like at this point, our breeding programs are still going to be separated anyway, but they'll probably a point that will start crossing. I'm like, I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to do like a breeder loan between the two of us and then do something like that and make it cross integrate. I don't know.
We challenged Robert, we want them to build us a website. And so we've had discussions about that. And I said, I don't know how, but I want the two databases to be on the same website somehow.
And he went like this. He's like, You can tell it was
we stumped him.
They're like, oh, okay, because he understands that we want to keep it separated for a while. And
I don't think there's any benefit to combining them right now. I mean, I guess we could. But.
I mean, it's his collection. It's Sarah's animals is how we look at it. I mean, it's all her animals, and we're just overseers and caretakers of it. And at this point, there's breeding programs that Tom has that we're going to keep following. And there's our breeding programs that we still are focusing on. And so we don't,
it's really two separate businesses.
It's two separate businesses that just happen to do the same thing, thank goodness. And Tom and I were very strategic when we were picking out animals that he bought from certain areas and I bought from certain areas. So a lot of our hogs are very unrelated. Except for the Swisses. Obviously, there was only so much you could do with Swiss chocolate, but he bought into part of the Swiss chocolate that had some outcrossing one direction and ours outcross in a different direction. But like our red albino line, his red albino line, you know, our snow line, his snow line, all that stuff is unrelated. So we had already kind of done that in the beginning because we knew we would start crossbreeding at some point. But we'll keep his lineage kind of separate, and then there'll be some crosses eventually. But it's
we actually just picked up a flag, well, 3 flags today from the local print shop. We know we got his logo and our logo on the same flag, so we can fly them both together at the shows.
That's cool. And, you know, earlier you were talking about the mice and the rat operation that you guys have and stuff, the breeding. With Husbandry.Pro next, that's going to be another feature too. You can have a rattery.
Yes.
I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see Husbandry.Pro next because, you know, we did that round table and they released a couple of new features and stuff. So that's really cool. Another, I say, benefit of the really inexpensive, price that we're paying is the ongoing development, the ongoing, you know, like you said, the technical support, the customer service. It's invaluable.
It is.
I think I send, you know, and this is one thing too, is like we've been using Husbandry.Pro for about the same amount of time as you know, so we're very well versed, and you know, things always come up even when they add new features to the original Husbandry.Pro. There's still little like things that maybe I use that maybe you're gonna not use or that's not there. So I send a ticket. I'm not even gonna lie, maybe 3 times a month of like, hey, I think this would be a good, and then like 24 to 48 hours, there's a resolution for that.
They fix it.
That's really cool.
Not just an email says, hey, we're working on your issues.
No, like, it's done. Like
fixed.
Check done. I remember sending a ticket earlier this year because Tom was like, well, I'd like to have the pictures of the parents, you know, available. And I'm like, you know what? We don't have pictures of the parents. We have all the genetics. We have all this stuff. So I was like, hey, is there a way we could get a toggle so that we could actually add the picture of the parents on the public view? And they were like, yeah, give us about a week. That's a little bit more complicated and we'll get it done. We'll send you a note. And they sent us one. I said, hey, Tom, I need you to go into general settings. I need you to go down in here. I had to talk him over the phone at it. I said, now, if you've got your pictures of your parents in there, you should be able to scan those codes on public view and you'll be able to see those parents. And that was just like, that was awesome to have it set into that system because we already had it on our info sheets. We already had it, you know, built in the main part of the system, but to have it on that public view made a lot of sense at the shows.
Here's one of my favorite things that they just updated, and it's in the commerce, the pricing, where you can go in and you could filter stuff here, and then you could just price things. Before they didn't have genetics.
That's right.
So I sent in a ticket. Hey, I think it would be great to have genetics. I don't use descriptors for stuff that I'm gonna sell because I don't want to add the extra shit. So I just go off genetics.
Okay.
So they added genetics and it's quick right there. Pricing, show price, everything is going there. You know, and the genetics. And so that's another quick, easy update that they did. They're like, oh, here's the thing is like if we already have that filter or that column or a row in another part of it, it's very easy for us to go and update it. And now they're saying with the back end programming that they're going to use for Husbandry.Pro next, now it's going to be like seconds to update things.
I know
because
that's
of how
going to
the
be
code is so cohesive and how it works.
Yeah,
that's going to be pretty awesome. Yeah.
So if you guys had to pick your top feature of Husbandry.Pro, what would you say it is? You guys can have either of you can have different answers.
It's got to be that show label where the customer can scan that QR and go see the health sheet. We call them health sheets.
Well, info sheet. Yeah. I mean, it gives all that information. I think that's probably our top for sure. I do love the incubator system. Like,
Yes.
I love that. I love
that's
looking
cool.
at it, like watching it. I stare at it,
And people
then,
can sign up to follow it.
And we've had people sign up, on waiting lists through it and
Yep.
stuff. And so, that's a huge feature. Having the store available, I can tell you, we don't do Morph Market really that much. There's some stuff on Morph Market. I don't think we have any hogs on Morph Market. We have some random ball pythons on there. But I'm not good at keeping up with it. Speaking of, I probably need to go in there and look and make sure I'm taking things off that we've sold. But the fact that somebody gets a hold of us through Instagram and I can just put a link to our Husbandry.Pro store, because that has all of our active animals that we take to the show. So if they're going to the shows, they're in for sale in the store. And that's easily removed when we sell them at the show. And that feature is so nice. Just be able to send a whole big old layout, the pictures, the information on those animals. That's a big deal. Those are probably our top. It's about giving information to other people as best that we can. I guess it's probably our top picks for Husbandry.Pro, because it does help us get that info out without us having to do a bunch of sidestepping and typing out a bunch of information. And so,
well, and to echo Bobby's comment there, like Dad being super nice, and he was helpful. Dad was a teacher at heart. He wanted to help other people. And so I think when we can provide all this info that Husbandry.Pro puts at people's fingertips, we're helping the community, because we were all that rookie at one point. We all had one snake at one point, and then it grows and grows. So it allows us to put more information in the customer's hands quicker. Not just send a customer. Say we sell you something, we do an animal transfer, and boom, you've got all the info.
It's right to you. It's so nice.
Yeah. And I use, and I want to show you guys your guys' Husbandry.Pro store. And I do use Morph Market, and I use my Husbandry.Pro store. I think it's just, to me, more avenues of reaching people is the best, right? But even if I sell stuff off of Husbandry.Pro store, I'll go and email them to export the detailed sheet, right? That brings all that information, feedings, parents' genetics, the animals that they're buying, the genetics, all that stuff. Very, very valuable. People love it. So that's really good. And since you email it, they can have a digital copy forever, and it's not like a handwritten note. Exactly. That if it gets wet or gets placed in the wrong place, you forget it. And if somebody forgets something and for some reason doesn't have access to that email anymore, you can still eventually go back in the archive and send them that information again.
I love that feature too, because it's always there, like you said. They have it forever.
Alisha, you want to answer Constrictly Business's question?
The only thing I have to say about that is it's not multi-species. I did start up a Clutch account, and I kind of looked through it when I had like a free trial of it, and I'm sure I could probably utilize some things in it for the ball pythons, but considering Husbandry.Pro covers all the same thing, plus I can do, we do all of our other stuff in there. I had to stick with the Husbandry.Pro when I was trying to decide between what to do when Clutch came out. And then I was like, well, I'm not going to leave Husbandry.Pro because this is just not going to work for us.
I think if you're strictly a ball python breeder, I think it's a toss up.
Yeah.
But if you want to get into multi-species, which I assume all of us will at some point.
Yeah.
Dad brought everything that's ever been in a snake show to home at one point. I mean, we've had all the things.
Yeah.
And I think that's kind of the beauty of this hobby. You can get to see a lot of things and explore.
Yeah.
So that's the flexibility of Husbandry.Pro.
I guess I don't know in Clutch either is how well like the tracking of feedings and like keeping up with inventory for future rat and mice supplies are.
Yeah,
like that's huge for us, especially with 2 collections that we're trying to manage and 2 rodent collections we're trying to manage in 2 different locations. For us to be able to kind of get a feel of what we need over a certain amount of time, when we go make an order, we make that order worthwhile, that we're covering the right number of things. And I honestly, once I played around with Clutch and we were both like, hey, this is only going to do ball pythons, and that's not a huge focus for us. And I remember when Tom had started up a Clutch thing, and he was talking to me about it, and he's like, well, I think I'm going to get into the Clutch. I said, multi-species, Tom. He's like, what? I said, Clutch doesn't do hog noses. And he was like, well, then forget it. I'm not doing it. I was like, exactly. And so
it had the avenue for shed testing.
It did. And it did.
Was nice.
And I wanted to bring this up because that is one of the main selling factors.
Yes.
I've never used Clutch. I don't have ball python, so I didn't even.
You didn't need it.
My radar. But these are all the species that they have.
Oh, so many.
I actually added Baron's Racer. So you can add species and genetics,
Yep.
and if they become a more frequent use species that people are inputting manually, then I don't see why the Husbandry Pro and the programmers will not add it as a default feature
Yeah.
and genetics and stuff like that. So Baron's Racer, boa, the BCCs, BCIs, bull snakes, carpets,
Yes.
corns, emerald trees, the list goes on to how many other species there's other snakes, right?
Yes.
And then you can just what's it called, add, go here, and you add the information.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Average incubation time, common name, scientific name, eggs or live birth, and save the changes. And as that goes, you can also add what's called genetics as well too. So it's very versatile on that end.
Yes,
um,
it is. And I think, hearing what the guys and the team have said through Husbandry.Pro, if there's a breeder of like maybe a very unique species that has a good reputation, a background, a knowledge of that species, they are willing to work with them to get that integrated into the system so that the genetic combos work, especially like when you're doing breeding program type things, your breeding plans. And so that's the beauty of this software, is the people that are overseeing it are keepers.
Yeah.
Well, at least Robert is and Zach is. These guys are keepers. They understand what it's like. And not, obviously Clutch is too. I'm not saying anything negative about them, but again, Clutch is very specific for ball pythons. Husbandry.Pro is very everybody. So
yeah. So
I did walk around with my shirt on in front of a bunch of them at the show this weekend. I had a Husbandry.Pro shirt on Sunday at the Southeast, and I was scanning some of the stuff that was a Clutch printout, and the QR codes weren't working. And we're like, why are the QR codes not working? And they're like, oh, that's just our private one for scanning with our own app. And we're like, well, there's not a public viewing. And I was like, oh, well, Husbandry.Pro just has a public toggle. I was
here's our promo code. Sign up.
I was a little bit of a stinker, but I was like, I wasn't bashing it, but I'm like, oh, I thought I was just going to get information on this.
That's cool. That's funny. Yeah. So constricting business.
Make enemies everywhere we go.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah. There's the answer. You have 3 species.
Yes.
Yeah.
To me, Husbandry.Pro will be the non, no brainer.
No question. No question. Yeah.
Yeah. So your labels, right? One of your favorite things, and then the store. I wanted to bring you guys' store up here and show people what it looks like, because a lot of people don't know that Husbandry.Pro creates a store for you.
Yeah.
Just all you have to do is hit a slider on the animals detail to show store, and it brings it up here. As long as you got your pictures, it brings it up.
Animal is for sale, and show and store different sliders, so you can fine tune that if you want. So if you're going to a show, you may want to hide it from your storefront for a minute.
Yeah, and then you guys have your multiple species, so people can what's it called?
Filter it down.
Western hognose, all that stuff, genetics as well. So very intuitive. So you filter, and it brings off your hognose. And that's one thing with Husbandry.Pro Next. That quick lag that was there is going to be.
It's going to be gone.
It's going to be gone. Yes. Yeah. Because of the back end programming, it's just going to be, as soon as you hit a button, it's going to pop up on that stuff.
I wish Husbandry.Pro had an expert setting for hognose photography.
Oh my gosh. I'm telling you.
If they could add that feature, holy
there's
crap.
Some days that I'm just like, I just realized there's a picture still in there that I haven't gone and toggled out. It's a picture of a little, I'd taken a picture of that one eating, and he was like in blue. And I remember seeing that the other day when I sent that to somebody. I was like, I need to go in there and flip it. I know how to flip it, but I have just not even gone and flipped it. I was like, you know what? It'll show up until I go flip it. But, just having that system and being able to send somebody a link to it is so much easier than like a printout of the animals and the price. This has got a picture, their birthday, and all that kind of stuff. It just looks better.
Yeah, and you can export that list to a actual Excel or PDF and email it to someone. Earlier here we had Billy Mutant.
Mutation creation.
Creations, right? and he was one of the, he's a partner in Husbandry
Yes.
Pro,
Yeah.
and he has a large collection,
Huge.
and he uses Husbandry Pro, and
Yeah.
his staff uses Husbandry Pro.
Yeah.
So it is doable with a large collection as long as you
Mhm.
get that routine going and that
Mhm.
structure going, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
sometimes
And again, like picking and choosing what part of it. I think that's where people get so overwhelmed by it, because there is a lot of options in there.
yes.
And we don't use the invoice system. I mean, we
Mhm.
have Square, so that's how we invoice stuff, and I know we can integrate it, but we just haven't got to that point yet. But there's a lot of the area in there that we don't utilize that other people do. But that's the beauty of it. There's just so much variation in there. And I do feel like with Next, there's going to be even more cool things that they're going to bring that I think people really need to go ahead and get their 60 days free. So they're really tuned in by the time the next hits. Then they're going to see this like mega increase that occurs when that hits. And so, and some other options that they're going to be able to add that are going to be really beneficial to helping multiple areas of your breeding program and keeping program. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And then, I see the people that keep either the index cards and stuff like that. Um, Bless them, because I don't know how they do it, how they
so much to
keep,
keep up with.
track
Yeah.
of everything and
I don't
handwrite them.
think you could appreciate Husbandry Pro for what it is unless you've gone through that. You
Yes.
have to go through your card phase or Excel phase for it to
Yes.
seem easy. If you started out with this, it would, I don't know, you wouldn't appreciate it.
Yeah.
It's just be part of, um and another thing too is the reminders on Husbandry Pro, the
Yeah.
settings, all that stuff. Like just the other day, and this is the first time I used it, right? Like using all these extra features. I set a reminder myself for the last feeding for hognose for brumation.
Yes.
So I was like, okay,
Yeah.
this is my last feeding, so it's gonna, whatever that day is, it's gonna pop up in my notifications. It's
Yeah.
gonna tell me today you're feeding your last feeding for the hog nose, and then they're gonna go on their 2-week fasting
Yeah.
and go into brumation.
It is nice to be able to set those kind of things so that you're busy or something comes up, you're like, you don't accidentally keep going and through your feeding. You're like, you throw your whole breeding routine off. But, just where we can even put in there when we need to pair certain things together, and the pairing capabilities of a notification, that helps probably more the ball pythons when we've got a male that's going to multiple females. It tells us, hey, it needs to go get paired to this girl this time and this girl this time. And so that's a huge benefit. We do keep up with follicles on those females. And so when we're looking at our breeding program for the ball pythons, being able to go in there and filter and say, okay, what females have over 15 millimeter follicles that we haven't paired yet? Who's not in the breeding program yet? Oh crap, this one is 1,800 grams. She was 15 at the last thing. We better get her paired. And that kind of thing. It helps you weed all that down, so that you're not missing stuff that you need to have timed out well, and you sure don't need it just rattling around in your head.
Yeah. And then, so you guys do use for ball pythons, for hognose, and corn snakes, right?
Yeah.
So you have your whole collection in there.
All three.
And we track our consumables with the rodents right now. So every time I pick a bag of shavings or pick a bag of food, we record it. We haven't used it much recently, but we tracked it for like 3 months straight just so we could get an approximate cost of rodents. It just helped us validate that we're growing our own rodents for a third to a quarter of the cost of buying them. So it justifies the time and money.
Yeah. And talk about feeding. Do you guys use the feedings do action to see?
We have in the past. Now I kind of stopped using that in the last few months because of Tom. I was having so many notifications coming in between the two different areas that I just shut that off, because we're on such a schedule now here or there that they're going to get fed that day when we're there. They're going to get fed this day when we're here, because we've had to limit it a little bit. And so I don't have the notification set anymore, but we still utilize it as far as we have the animals in there with the size of food that they're on, so that we can do that population of how many feeders are we going to need over a month or 2-month period. That's probably where we're using it the most right now, is just giving us our feeder count.
Yeah. So, and I'm gonna bring that up as well. Like, this is very, especially when you have multiple species, hatchlings, adults, and you're feeding multiple sizes of stuff. This is very important. Like, to me, at least, I'll come in here, and if it's a feeding day, I'll sit down early in the morning. all right, I need this many feeders to feed today,
Yeah.
and pull them.
Yeah. You just
Um,
pull them. Yep.
you know, and I've seen other people post it on social media like, oh, feeding day, and they just have a screenshot of this or a printout if they use a printout,
Oh yeah. Just
and
like
it's
stick
so
it up on
easy.
the wall and
Yep.
you know stick it on the front of your freezer if you're going to go pull for freezer
It's
stuff.
funny. It's exactly what I do. I'll write it sometimes on
Yeah.
here,
Yeah.
stick it on the freezer, and start pulling off of
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
It does
Yeah.
makes it so much faster. And then like there's ball pythons that eat live here. And so then I have the live list. So I can either tell Josh, hey, I need you to go get me like 3 crawlers and 2 pinkies or whatever it is. And then I'm pulling the frozen thawed stuff. And then, we're thawing, he's dropping, we're just able to like know our counts without 1, 2, 3, 4, like, oh my God, I would lose my mind if I had to stand there and count all
Well, I
that
think
stuff.
all the time savings you gain from using this software allows you to have more snakes.
Yeah, it
Your
does.
time is more optimized, so you might as well get 2 or 3 more.
100%. Yeah.
Or 300 more.
Yeah, 100. That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah. So we've talked about you guys' favorite features, what you use the most. Is there any one feature that, and this is hard to answer because of how many features they have and stuff that, is there one thing that you think Husbandry.Pro needs? Have you thought about something like, man, I wish they had this?
I've been wanting that rattery option for a while now.
We've been talking about it for a long time. Even before Robert had brought it up, he had been talking about, is there got to be some kind of way to make this into a rattery situation? I said, well, we can try to make like it a cage. We could try to build cages. We were actually talked about that. Actually make the cage system or the rack system, and then build those colonies out of those racks, because we had stopped using the rack system at that point for the snakes anyway. And I said we would just make it the rodents, and then, but we couldn't figure out like how we were like gonna tally what we pulled and what we, how many.
I'm pretty much using the same system from when I was 16 years old, my 4-H veterinary science project, because it worked. They were using like tape and writing it down by hand, but I don't like that. I'm tired of doing that because I'm getting old, and the racks in the bottom are a pain to write on near the floor. I bought one of those like little mechanics scoot around chairs so I can sit around.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm getting old.
So we're hoping with the rattery system, we can be able to kind of utilize how much we're pulling too, so that we can keep up with, we're not going to necessarily log each, like, oh, it got 3 pinkies from here. Like, we just want to be able to say we pulled 10 from that group, we pulled 10 from this group, and like we can be able. I think the way next is going to be, especially with the rattery thing, we'll be able to watch a trend. Like, okay, this colony is like peaking out all of a sudden. Each week we're getting less and less. Okay, this colony is probably about ready to be retired, and we're not having to like process and think about that as much. We'll just be able to see the trend on that particular colony, because it looks like they're going to have some of that set into the system, which will be great.
And I don't breed any of my feeders yet, but I've heard from friends that do, and having that time frame of rotation,
definitely,
if you could really dial that down and have a record. Okay, I know every 10 weeks I got to rotate females, I got to pull and add new and stuff like that. That's gonna be such a game changer for production.
Yeah,
it's gonna be wild.
It does make a difference, and we have friends that have a certain kind of rotation plan, and it makes sense how they just basically, I guess it's like once a week they retire the oldest group, and then the newest group gets started, and then they basically do that throughout the year. So they've got 50 colonies, and so
by the time it travels through the rack from the top to the bottom, they've pretty much ran their productive cycles. So
I guess to us too, I mean, we also want to watch the trend of the colonies that aren't doing well even out the gate. They may be young, but they're just, maybe the male has poor sperm production or whatever it may be.
We had a rat tub that we called her single mama or single mother.
Mom, yeah.
And she was due for retirement. She's old. She's like 2 years old. And we opened the tub. She had a litter in there. She like grabbed one pinky, like ran to the back of the tub and looked at us like, you're not going to get this pinky from me. I'm like, all right. So we just blended her back in with another tub and let her keep going. Like, she made eye contact. I've never made eye contact with a rat before.
Yeah. So we blended her, and they're reproducing again. So I'm like, okay, that's probably not the way to do it as a rattery, but we couldn't help it.
I think there will be judgment calls. The system will probably recommend things, but there will be
judgment calls.
So
we are looking forward to that.
And we talked about the labels on the shows and stuff like that. You guys have been traveling a lot lately.
Yes.
You know, we saw you guys at Daytona, Dallas,
Yeah.
this weekend at Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charlotte.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah.
Then
so
Tinley's coming
Then
up.
we've got Tinley.
Then we're gonna do Slidell.
Louisiana.
mhm.
Yeah. And then
We'll sleep.
we'll
sleep
sleep
another day.
eventually. I mean, I don't know. Sleep is overrated, but we'll be at Tinley again in the spring. We signed up for Dallas in the spring. We signed up for the Southeast in the spring, so hopefully they get that going. We'll do Charlotte again in the spring.
We really enjoy shows.
Oh, we love it.
We're both people persons, and so we enjoy. I don't know, that face-to-face interaction is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I got to tell you guys, usually when I get to the shows, you guys are already set up, and you guys are broken down really quick.
Yeah.
It's the system, I guess, probably that Tom put together. You guys are, you know, continuing and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm impressed when, you know, I walk by the table, you guys are gone already.
He taught us some tricks.
Yeah. Well, Sarah is one of those, like, by the end of the show, if she's there, she's packing up like 30 minutes before it's done. She's already like 7. And so I'm having to like watch her because she kind of like starts overpacking a little too soon. But Tom was the same way. Like 30 minutes before the end of the show, he was already packing up because he wanted to be in the show ended at 4. He was in the van at 4:05 and he was on the road at 4:10. I mean, that was just the way he was.
We leave the animals out. The animals are the last thing to go.
Yeah,
like banners and stuff, we'll break that down early.
Yeah.
But yeah, we enjoy the shows, and we'll probably start doing more shows and gradually try to work in more digital stuff.
Yeah. We're trying to still learn the online presence, but we're going to start doing some audio. We've already started some audios. We've just got to edit them and figure out how we're going to put them out there. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then we'll do some little short videos and things like that here and there.
We want to do training videos because one thing that we lost with Dad was just all his wealth of knowledge. Like, he never really wrote a book. You know, he did some interviews online, but all of the knowledge that we gained from him is it. Like, it's not written anywhere. So not to say we're going to be the gold standard, but we're going to at least want to show and document what works for us.
And he did teach us things that we didn't realize that he taught us until he was gone. And I mean, there was one, I did a quick video on Instagram a little while back that it was 7 days after he'd passed. We got to the house and there was a clutch that had been laid, a ball pythons. And he'd always taught me to pull the eggs apart. And so I started trying to pull them apart and they were really adhered. And I started to pull and I got tears in 2 of them. And I just, of course, I'm breaking down crying because, I mean, it was just too much for me emotionally. But I was like, you know what? He told me how to do this. I'm going to do this. And so then I have the guys run around. I said, I need cloth Band-Aids and super glue. And so we're rummaging through everything. They're going through everything in the kitchen. We get it all together. And I clean off the eggs and I put that glue around the edge of that cloth. And I was like, okay, let's see what happens. And then I was able to do a video showing that they hatched and they were absolutely fine. So he taught me how to do that. He's taught him how to do so many things. And we used him as a Google. It was like Google Tom.
He was our Google,
we asked him stuff all the time, stuff that we probably shouldn't need to ask him. And we want to be able to kind of help people gain that knowledge that he gave to us. So
no, that's great. You know, I think, like you said, passing on that knowledge and that information that, you know, and especially in the digital world that we're at, where it can be a permanent record forever.
Yes, definitely.
However many generations come down that people review and stuff like that. I think that's going to be a hit. He was such a knowledgeable guy. And, obviously pass it on to Josh and yourself and stuff like that.
We were really, really lucky. And I think we knew that, but that we didn't know it, you know, and we're like, wow, we were super blessed to have him in our life. You know, Josh had one of the best people in the world as his dad. You know, you don't get that lucky. And then for me to find that family and us click the way we did, you know, we were very, very fortunate. And so we want to continue to share that, you know. As best we can. So.
And talking about that, his store on Husbandry.Pro is set up as well, right?
Yes, correct.
Okay, perfect. So if somebody's looking for one of those legacy animals
and
stuff like that he has, his store set up, and you guys can go look. Another reason why to get Husbandry.Pro. As we close out tonight, anything that new that's coming down the pipeline, either with blending and bringing his collection, and just for you guys, Herpin Harbins?
I guess the biggest thing to kind of watch over the next few months as we're trying to figure it out is we are going to be starting to build a facility. So anybody with any suggestions, please send us information on like things you would do again or things you wouldn't do again.
I've already picked Derek's brain a little bit,
Derek's
but
brain
I may be calling you back again,
probably.
buddy.
Yeah, Derek has helped a lot with some info, and you know, I talked to Justin, you know, Canova this weekend. You know, there's just certain people that have built buildings or have had buildings brought in that, you know, it's kind of it's a different type of building what we're trying to set up, and we're also trying to set up 3 different climates within a building, to have the hogs, the balls, and then an area that's more of an open area for the rats, and then a different area that's for
that's facility. They had a horse barn they converted, and like they bundled up some of the stalls and made room. So I've kind of learned from not his mistakes, but what he said he wished he would have done different. And that's what we're asking everybody at the show is like, what would you have done different? What would you have changed? Or
how would you change it?
And we'll do a video. We're gonna do like a building.
It'll be
time lapse kind of thing, and just, you know, lessons learned along the way. And
so that's kind of hopefully keep us all in your thoughts and prayers as we're going through that endeavor. It's a whole like area that we just really we weren't really mentally prepared for, but it's happening and we're doing it. So over the next several months, we'll hopefully be breaking ground pretty soon on that project. And then, you know, the plan of how we're moving the animals, when we're moving the animals, you know, the process of that. We're really
Mom said
hoping the brumation and hognose, you know, kind of all correlate, and they're kind of asleep while things are getting built.
That's the hope. Mom said when they moved down from Tennessee to Alabama, they just shoved everything in one of the goat trailers and wrapped a tarp on it, did a midnight run all in one
with
shot.
The rats.
Like, y'all are crazy, Mom. I was like, that is so much risk. Like, anyway,
they did some wild stuff. But
no, that's going to definitely be a interesting journey, and you know, a lot of people are going to be interested to see. You know, it's such a, you know, important part of it, like moving with animals. You know, it's there's got to be certain things that do's and don'ts, right?
Exactly.
That can definitely, you know, if you guys put that out there, save somebody's collection and help somebody make avoid making the mistakes from that situation. So that's really cool. I'm looking forward to seeing that. You know, for the viewers, if you guys are interested, and I'm hoping that after this episode, for all the, you know, great stuff we've talked about, you guys at least want to do a 6-day trial and use Harbin 60 to, you know, get your 6-day free trial as well. In the ticker down below, you see there's a husbandry user group on Facebook. So go check that out.
Definitely.
That's very useful.
There's a lot of information, like simple. Sometimes, you know, you guys get lost in the mass amount of features. Just a quick message to the Facebook group. Hey, how did I do this? And you'll have a slew of people just, hey, this is how you do it. Here's a picture. Here's a video. So that's really great. Really good resource.
Definitely. We've used it. We've definitely used it. So.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you again.
Thank
you both for sharing all the information, you know, sharing what you guys have and how you use Husbandry.Pro. We'll see you this weekend at Charlotte.
Definitely.
And, you know, thank you everybody for watching. Tune in tonight. And make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. We'll see you guys in the next one.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Good night, everybody.